My husband returned from a work trip with a child. But a DNA test revealed a secret even he didn't know. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's not my kid. Those 6 words stopped everyone in their tracks, especially my husband, Brian. We were standing in the middle of the airport terminal, surrounded by travelers, jet engines roaring in the background, and the toddler clinging to his leg with sticky fingers wasn't ours. Not biologically, anyway. The little girl had curly brown hair, the kind that falls in perfect ringlets without effort. She looked up at me with eyes that didn't match either mine or Brian's, wide, scared, and hauntingly familiar. But not because I'd seen them before. Because I hadn't. Ever. It should have been a joyful scene, our long-awaited reunion after Brian's emergency work trip overseas. But instead of grabbing his suitcase and going home, I was frozen, staring at a child that didn't belong to me. And Brian? He had this half-panicked, half-pleading look on his face. Like he wanted to speak, but didn't know what words could undo this. Her name's Lenny, he finally stammered. It's complicated. Yeah, no kidding. Part 2, the pretend family photo. Rewind 4 hours. I'd been killing time in arrivals, holding the cheesy "welcome home" sign our daughter Ellie had made. Ellie's 6. She's never met this girl. And she was still in school, thank God, because the minute I saw Brian walk off that plane with a child in his arms, I knew something was wrong. He smiled like nothing was off, kissed me, set the toddler down gently and said, "She's a little sleepy." That's when it hit me he wasn't surprised when she clung to him. He expected it. Whose kid is that? I asked quietly, already feeling the ground shift under me. He hesitated. She's a friend's daughter. Long story. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be the wife who trusted first and asked questions later. But then a man walked by and snapped a photo. I don't know why, maybe he thought we looked sweet. That fake little airport family moment? It felt like a punch to the gut. I wasn't smiling in that picture. Not really. Part 3. The lie that tasted too easy. Back home, I gave Brian a chance. I let him explain. He spun some tangled story about a colleague from his tech firm in Geneva who died suddenly. No next of kin. No will. And for some reason, he had agreed to fly the child to the States until they figured out the legal stuff. You could have called, I said. You could have warned me. You could have anything. He looked me dead in the eyes and said, I didn't want you to worry. But I wasn't worried. I was suspicious. And when I opened the side pocket of his suitcase to grab the charger, I found something I wasn't supposed to see. A birth certificate. And on it, under father, was Brian's full name. Now I'm sitting here, Lenny asleep upstairs in our guest room, Brian pacing in the backyard with his phone to his ear, and I'm wondering, do I call a lawyer? Or his mother? Because suddenly I don't know who I married. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's not my kid. That's what the TSA agent said, holding up the crying toddler while my husband stood frozen beside me. The child, maybe 2 or 3, clutched Brian's jacket like her life depended on it. Her curls were matted from sleep, her cheeks blotchy from crying. And Brian looked like he was caught in headlights. It was supposed to be a reunion. I was standing there with a cardboard sign that said, "Welcome home, Daddy," in sparkly marker, courtesy of our 6-year-old daughter, Ellie. She was still at school. Thank God. Because what I saw wasn't a homecoming. It was a reveal. Sir, the agent said again, this time more forcefully, do you know this child? Brian blinked. His mouth opened. Closed. He cleared his throat. Yes. She's with me. My stomach turned. That delay. That hesitation. Something was off. I could feel it in my teeth. The agent looked at me next. Ma'am, is this your daughter? I said it before I thought it. I've never seen her before in my life. The girl looked up at me. She didn't cry louder. She didn't flinch. She just stared, with eyes that didn't look like mine. Or Brian's. But they looked like someone's. And deep down I knew. Brian leaned down, scooped her up, so easily, so naturally, and whispered something in her ear. She calmed, just like that. He had done this before. Many times. I took a step back. My hands were shaking. Who is she, Brian? He swallowed hard. Her name's Lenny. That was it. No friend's kid, no long story. Just her name, like it was supposed to mean something. I blinked at him. At the little girl. At the distance between us that had never felt wider. And right then, surrounded by security, tourists, and blinking fluorescent lights, one question rang through my mind louder than all the noise around us. Is this the moment my marriage ends? The photo hit Instagram before we even made it home. Brian's cousin Maddie had been waiting near baggage claim, apparently just by chance, and snapped a picture without asking. She tagged me, Brian, and get this, #FamilyComplete. In the photo, I'm standing next to Brian, clearly mid-blink, clearly shell-shocked, holding Ellie's glitter sign like it was a police placard. And there's Brian, smiling stiffly, holding that little girl Lenny on his hip like she's been ours for years. I looked like someone who'd just been told her entire reality had an alternate ending. Because that's exactly what happened. The car ride home was quiet. Lenny fell asleep in the back seat, strapped into Ellie's booster. I drove. Brian stared out the window like a teenager grounded for the weekend. Every time I opened my mouth, I closed it again. Not because I didn't have questions, I had all the questions, but because I didn't want to ask them while she was in the car. Not while she was listening. The silence between us wasn't angry. It was dense. Pressurized. Something waiting to combust. We pulled into the driveway, and the moment the car stopped, Brian unbuckled, turned around, and carried Lenny inside like it was his job. Like it had been his job. And that's when it really hit me. He didn't look confused. He didn't look nervous. He looked routine. Once she was settled, curled up on the couch under Ellie's old Paw Patrol blanket, I cornered him in the kitchen. You want to tell me what the hell is going on now? I kept my voice low, calm. For her sake. For mine. Brian didn't meet my eyes. He just leaned against the fridge like it was the only thing holding him up. She's mine, he said finally. I'm her dad. That sound you hear in movies? The slow violin note when someone gets stabbed in the back? That was in my head, except it was my own heartbeat. I grabbed the counter. With who? He hesitated just long enough to make it worse. Camille. The name thudded in my chest. Camille. His ex. The one before me. The one he swore he hadn't talked to since the week we met. The one who moved to Lisbon, allegedly to find herself. She called me 6 months ago, he continued. Said she had cancer. Said there was no one else. My mouth went dry. So you just took the kid? I didn't tell you because I didn't know what to do. And then I left for that conference in Geneva, and she dropped Lenny off at the hotel. My brain was moving faster than my body. I felt myself pacing, but I couldn't hear my own footsteps. Only his voice. Only hers. And now? I asked. He looked up at me, eyes glassy. Now Camille's gone. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I just stood there in the kitchen, staring at the man I married and wondering when exactly he'd become a stranger. She's gone. I repeated, my voice barely audible. Brian nodded. 3 weeks ago. She passed in her sleep. Her neighbor found her. And the funeral? I asked, already bracing for the answer. I went, he whispered. That one broke something in me. You went. He looked at me, guilty and tired. I didn't know how to tell you. It didn't seem real yet. And I thought I could ease you into it. Ease me into it. Like this was some surprise home renovation reveal. I turned away from him and stared out the window, watching Lenny's little chest rise and fall under the blanket. She looked so peaceful, so unaware. And yet, her entire world had cracked apart. Just like mine. He had a daughter. A living, breathing child. And for 3 years, he kept it a secret. When did she call you? I asked again. Last October, he said. right after Lenny turned 2. So for 8 months, you let me believe we were living a normal life, building a future together, when you already had another one. He stepped forward. I wasn't with Camille anymore. I swear. Lenny wasn't planned. We hadn't talked in years until she reached out. That's not the point. I snapped. My voice echoed through the hallway, making Lenny stir. I lowered it. You lied. Every single day, you lied by omission. He dropped his head into his hands. I know. I know. I was scared. You were scared, I echoed. And I'm just supposed to pick up the pieces? Neither of us spoke for a long moment. Then I said something I hadn't even realized I'd been thinking. I need time. Brian looked up. Time for what? To decide if I can forgive you, I said. Or if I even want to. That night, I slept on the couch. Not because I was punishing him, but because I couldn't be near him without feeling like the floor might drop out from under me again. And as I lay there, watching the ceiling fan spin, I kept coming back to one question. What else haven't you told me? The next morning started with silence. Not tension, not yet, but that raw, uncomfortable quiet where everything is pretending to be normal. I made coffee. He poured juice for Lenny. We didn't look at each other. Lenny sat in Ellie's high chair like she'd always been there, babbling softly to herself, her little hands gripping the tray like she belonged. And in that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. She did belong. Because Brian had clearly been preparing for this. There was a pink toothbrush in the bathroom. A booster seat already strapped into his car. A handful of toddler snacks tucked into the pantry behind our cereal. This wasn't new. Not to him. He hadn't just been hiding a child. He'd been nesting her into our life, piece by piece, right under my nose. When he left for Geneva, I hadn't noticed what he packed. I thought it was a conference, a hotel, some PowerPoints and jet lag. It was none of that. He'd gone to meet his daughter. Alone. That realization was the first crack. The second came when I opened his suitcase again while he was in the shower. The birth certificate was still there, folded neatly in the side pocket. But tucked behind it now, I noticed something else, a photo. One I hadn't seen before. It was of Lenny in a field somewhere, clutching a sunflower and laughing. But it wasn't the photo that stunned me. It was the background. There was a picnic blanket, 2 plates, and a pair of women's sunglasses, definitely not mine. I flipped the photo over. In Camille's handwriting, one of our favorite days. Red heart, see. Our. I sat on the edge of the bed, feeling everything inside me shift. This wasn't just a child from a one-time mistake. This was a family he'd built outside of ours. And now that it was falling apart, he expected me to absorb it like a sponge. I didn't mean to answer the phone. It rang while I was halfway through deleting old emails, some desperate attempt at pretending things were still under control. The number was unknown, area code overseas. I nearly let it go to voicemail. But something made me swipe. Hello. A pause. Then a voice, female, weary, slow. Hi. Is this Rachel Parker? Yes, I said, cautiously. This is Marie. I was Camille's neighbor. I'm sorry to bother you. I found your number in her emergency contact book. You were listed under Rachel, important. My heart stopped. I didn't even know she had one. She mentioned you once, Marie said. I think she was going to reach out to you. But, well, she didn't get the chance. What is this about? I asked, already gripping the phone like it might dissolve. Marie hesitated. Camille was complicated. She didn't have many friends here. But she loved Lenny. Fiercely. It wasn't easy, raising her alone. I didn't know what to say. So I waited. I wanted to ask if Lenny's all right. She talked about Brian a lot. Said he was the only person she trusted with her daughter if something ever happened. But Marie sighed, voice cracking. She also said he didn't know everything. I sat up straight. What do you mean? She said there were things she never told him. About Lenny. About the father. Silence. I felt my chest tighten. Are you saying Brian might not be? I don't know, she said quickly. Maybe it's nothing. But I thought, if anyone should know, it's you. I scribbled down her number, thanked her, and hung up. Then I stared at the wall for a solid 10 minutes, trying to breathe. Could it be possible? Could Brian have taken on this child, built this hidden life around her, and not even know if she was his? And then the more terrifying thought hit me. What if he didn't know and lied anyway? I waited until the next morning. Brian left early to take Lenny to the park. He'd started doing that daily, like she was a dog that needed walking. I watched them pull out of the driveway in silence, Lenny's curls bouncing in the back seat. Brian smiling like fatherhood was a badge he'd just earned. As soon as they were gone, I opened the junk drawer and pulled out the test kit I'd ordered in secret the day after the phone call from Camille's neighbor. I knew I had a small window. Lenny's pacifier was still on the end table. I sealed it into the bag, labeled it, and pressed my thumb over the flap to smooth it flat. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Because here's the thing, when someone rewrites your entire life story without your consent, you earn the right to ask your own questions. Quietly, thoroughly, without permission. I dropped the envelope at the post office and went home like nothing had happened. Brian never suspected. That week, I acted like the wife who was trying. I asked him questions about how Lenny was adjusting. I helped her brush her teeth. I even read her a book one night while Brian took a shower. And she warmed to me. That was the part one didn't see coming. She started calling me Ray. It wasn't mommy, but it was something. I didn't know whether to be comforted or crushed. But I smiled through it, because a part of me was starting to hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this kid wasn't a secret dropped on our doorstep like a bomb, but something else. Something that could grow into family. Then the results came. 3 days later. I waited until I was alone. It was raining outside, the kind of steady drizzle that makes you feel like time itself has slowed down. I opened the email and read the first line. Paternity not confirmed. That was the moment everything tilted. Lenny wasn't Brian's biological daughter. He didn't know. Which meant one of two things. Either Camille lied to him, or he lied to me. And as I stared at the screen, one more terrifying possibility crept in. What if both were true? I didn't plan to say anything at dinner. Not that night. I had made chicken marsala, Lenny was coloring beside me, and Brian had just come in with a bottle of wine like we were still some idyllic little family. But lies have a way of getting louder when you're pretending too hard. Every smile he gave her. Every bite he fed her off his fork. Every "hey, kiddo" felt like a hammer to the ribs. Halfway through the meal, I couldn't take it anymore. So, I said, calmly folding my napkin. When were you going to tell me she might not even be yours? The fork slipped from Brian's hand. Lenny looked up briefly, then went back to her crayons, oblivious. What are you talking about? He asked. Too fast. I pulled the paper from the side drawer. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I slid it across the table like a bill he forgot to pay. He glanced at it. His face turned white. You tested her? He whispered. Yes. You had no right. No, I said. You had no right. To bring a child into our home under a lie. To play family without giving me the truth. She is my daughter, he said, his voice rising. Maybe not by blood. But Camille told me she was mine, and I believed her. I chose her. I stared at him, heart pounding. Then why didn't you tell me that? Why keep it a secret if there's nothing to hide? Brian stood, pacing. Because I was afraid. Afraid you'd tell me to send her back. Afraid you'd look at me like this. This isn't about how I look at you, I snapped. It's about trust. You didn't give me a choice. Lenny's lip began to tremble. I turned to her and softened. Hey, sweetie, it's okay. Go finish your picture in the living room, all right? She nodded and patted away. And then it was just us. I leaned forward. Brian, I need to know something. Did you always believe she was yours? Or did you just need her to be? His silence was the loudest answer he'd ever given me. The house was too quiet after Lenny went to bed. I poured myself a cup of tea I didn't touch, just held it like a shield while Brian paced like he could outwalk the truth. I broke the silence first. Did Camille know? He froze. Know what? That Lenny wasn't yours. His shoulders sagged. I think she did. But she never said it. Just, let me believe. And you let yourself believe, I said flatly. Because it made you feel needed. He looked like I'd slapped him. You think I did this for me? I think, I said slowly, you were drowning in guilt. About Camille. About the past. And when she asked for help, you saw a chance to be the hero. Brian dropped into the armchair like gravity had betrayed him. I didn't know how to fix it. You don't fix this, I said. You face it. He didn't respond. Just stared at the floor, as if an answer might be hiding in the carpet fibers. I stood. I'm taking Ellie to my sister's for the weekend. That got his attention. You're leaving. I'm pausing, I said. Because I need to decide whether I can trust you again. Whether this version of our life is something I can live with. What about Lenny? He asked. She's just a kid. She needs us. I nodded. She needs someone. But whether that someone is us, as a couple, I don't know yet. He looked gutted. I didn't comfort him. Because this wasn't about punishment. This was about preservation. Mine. He whispered, I never meant to hurt you. I turned to the door, then looked back. That's the worst part, Brian. You never meant to. You just did it anyway. 2 days after Ellie and I left, I got a letter in the mail. Not an email. Not a text. A real envelope, hand-addressed in Brian's careful handwriting. Inside was a photo and a note, just 5 sentences long. The photo was of Lenny, sitting in our backyard, holding a stuffed elephant. The same one Ellie used to sleep with as a toddler. The note said, I found this in Camille's storage unit. There was a journal. I was wrong. Lenny's father wasn't me, or anyone she'd ever known. Camille used a donor. She just wanted her child to have a family when she couldn't anymore. I understand if you can't come back. But I still believe we could be hers. I read that note 3 times. The first time, I cried. Because part of me had wanted the lie to be clean. Containable. But this? This was Messier. More human. The second time, I smiled. Because I remembered how Lenny had started calling me Ray. Not Mom. Not Miss Rachel. Just Ray. Like I was someone permanent. And the third time, I folded the letter gently and stared at the wall for a while, thinking. No, she wasn't Brian's daughter. But she was here. In our lives. And somehow, she'd become part of my heart too, without permission, without a plan. I didn't text him back. Not right away. Instead, I packed up Ellie's things, stopped at the grocery store, and drove home. Brian was on the porch when we pulled in. Lenny jumped to her feet and squealed when she saw us. I knelt down beside her and said softly, I think we need to talk about what Ray means. She tilted her head. Is it like, Mama? Maybe, I said. If you want it to be. She nodded, hugging my neck. And that was that. No fireworks. No big declarations. Just a quiet beginning built on honesty for once. Update, 3 months later. Lenny calls me Mama Ray now. Ellie reads her bedtime stories. Brian and I are in counseling. We're trying not to erase the past, but to build something real in its shadow. And some nights, when the house is quiet and both girls are asleep, I look around and think, this isn't the family I expected. But maybe it's the one I was meant to have.